Hello and welcome to Lancast. Danny Martin and Josh Gerber are here. How's it going? And
Doing good.
thank you. Good to hear. And before we get into our discussion, I have a few words to say. So I'm going to monologue for a minute. You know, politics are complicated. There are many different issues. And once you dig under the surface, there are unintended consequences to almost every issue. So it's hard to be a real expert on any single issue without devoting a lot of time to it. But the problem is our lives are so busy and most of us don't have time to do research or deliberation. And so we tend to outsource our comprehension to the so-called experts, just like we might hire a plumber for leaky pipes or an electrician if we're having trouble with our power. The problem is with politics, experts often conflict in their opinions. And when they do, which one should we follow? When someone tells you to trust the experts, often what they really mean is trust my expert or trust the official or popular in the mainstream expert. And that's not necessarily always the wrong approach because, again, we only know what we know. But what if that expert comes from a specific institution that was built on a house of greed and careerism, and the people who have ended up on top have just happened to be the most aggressively self-serving? Or even less cynically, what if the house is completely benevolent but are just not as expert as much as they claim? So the paradox here is, sure, it's okay to outsource information, and it sometimes might in fact be preferable to doing your own research, but it takes time to vet those experts and to look at their record in terms of what they actually got right and wrong in the past, and to examine the power structures that may be influencing them and therefore leading you astray. I talked about the Milgram experiments in an earlier episode and how they proved how susceptible humankind is to blindly following authority and just how dangerous that can be. Now, I want to give you an analogy, which is a good segue into the second paradox I want to bring up. Have you ever heard someone say you've got to advocate for yourself when it comes to going to the doctor or healthcare in general? I think it's actually very sound advice. And what it means is, yes, our doctors may be experts in their field, and in general, it's good to follow their advice. But no matter how much expertise they might have, nobody has as much expertise about your own body as you do. Similarly, when it comes to politics, we should advocate for ourselves. And this brings me to the second paradox I want to mention today, the paradox of competing lived experiences. Different people care about different issues based on how the issue affects them or the people in their life. Things that are in the abstract to some are very visible and tangible to others. One of the things I often say on this podcast is, I don't care who you vote for or whether you vote or don't vote at all. I mean, there are plenty of other ways other than an electoral booth for one to exercise any kind of civic duty. I do vote, and although I might have my own inclinations towards a particular party, I don't think people should ever be vote shamed, because in a sense, isn't it basically like denying that person's lived experiences that have shaped what issues they care about and how they view them? Thankfully, I don't have a job that's currently under the federal government chopping block, but I sympathize with those who do. I'm blessed that I'm not dependent on a government program to put food on the table, but I sympathize with those who do and are worried about it being taken away, or at least have the uncertainty of it being replaced with something else. For me personally, at least prior to the COVID pandemic, the issues that I cared about most that hit closest to home involved war and foreign policy. My father is a veteran who was deployed to Korea during the Vietnam War when some of his buddies were being shipped over there to die. And he always instilled anti-war values in me growing up and made me read books about the various wars. During my adult life, I've also come to know many Gold Star parents, and it has definitely influenced the way I vote even more. Not just in terms of what issues I place as most important, but also understanding that one's own lived experiences can also be exploited for a vote. Because the president might promise you peace and tell you what you want to hear, but actually give you more war. And I learned this the hard way when my dear friend and coworker lost her son in Afghanistan in 2011. The point being, I don't expect others who don't have the same experience in social circles to approach things as I do. But at a time there's a lot of vote shaming going around, I hope at least they will respect mine. Now, since we can't have lived experiences or expertise about every issue, and we don't necessarily have time to vet the experts to outsource to, how do we fill in these gaps? Well, the problem is most people, to some degree, fill in those gaps with confirmation bias. We're all susceptible to it. What is confirmation bias? It's the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. I'll admit that because I know multiple parents whose children were vaccine injured, and I believe them and don't deny their lived experiences, I've become more skeptical when a doctor tries to push one on me. It's not that I've sworn off all vaccines for all time, and I think it's okay if someone has, but I've just become more selective about which ones my kids or myself really need. But I will admit that when I hear a story about someone dying suddenly or having some unexpected childhood illness or condition, my mind does tend to go there. It must have been the vaccine. And I try to catch myself because usually I don't know the full story and I shouldn't jump to conclusions. So the point is, I know I have my own confirmation biases and I'm working on it. In the episode where I talked about the Milgram experiments, the second experiment I mentioned were the Solomon-Asch conformity experiments. Those experiments demonstrated how people can be influenced by social pressure to conform and disbelieve their own eyes. Now, conformity bias is different from confirmation bias, but there are similarities in the sense that in both cases, instead of seeking objective truth, the individuals in both cases are seeking some sort of validation, even if it means ignoring evidence to the contrary. All right, so this is getting a bit philosophical, but to wrap this up, the point is, all of this makes it very hard to get to the objective truth. And I think the paradoxes I've talked about make it hard to not have a great deal of political division. It doesn't help that the most popular news outlets seem to be in the business of feeding confirmation biases rather than reporting anything resembling unbiased facts. But that's a whole other can of worms that we've already talked about and we'll continue to talk about. So in the meantime, let's all work on our own confirmation biases. This will go a long way to bridge those gaps with other people across the aisle. And yes, it's okay to do your own research, as I've said before. Don't trust anyone who tells you otherwise, but just try to make sure you're being as discerning as possible and thoroughly vetting your sources. Thank you. That is it, Josh. I gave that speech today at Toastmasters, and I thought it went pretty well.
It was very good.
Oh, thank you. And I think it's a good segue to the people need to hear it are some of the most polarizing. Yeah, we have a mutual friend who I guess thinks our podcast is Christian nationalism, whatever that means. And I guess I'm a Putin-loving co-host. This gem here, he runs for office all the time, and I'm just putting that out there. Like this is his idea of healthy political.
Is he the Beto? Is he the Beto of Warwick of Pennsylvania?
Maybe yes. Yeah, if he wants to reach out to me and have a civil conversation, it'd be great. But yeah.
I guess I like talking to him as a human being. He's a good dude.
He's a nice guy. I feel bad making fun of him here, but he's kind of attacking our show and attacking me for being anti-war when it comes to Ukraine. I just want the dying to stop, and I guess that makes me a Putin lover. I mean, well, here's the irony. This particular individual we're talking about here, he was the former president of Peace Action Network of Lancaster, which is where I met him. And this is what peace activism has come to. Like, you call your friends Putin lovers if they don't want to keep funding the war. Like, it makes no sense. Like,
well, should we get some context to why he posted what he posted? We should probably get some context.
Sure.
There was a plane crash in Mannheim area over the weekend on Sunday, and he basically equated to the candidate for the 36th district, Josh Parsons, as like being in the way, and like basically saying, hey, good job for saying that Lancaster County is full of Amish and Mennonites and it's safe. Like, it's basically saying, like, that's not of your doing. That's just because Lancaster is safe. Good job, bro. And by the way, it's a boring place to live. So I kind of pushed back on that because I know he has kids. and anyone who has kids, they
Yeah.
want their kids, their family to be living in a safe environment, which is good for growth. And I can't even remember what his reply was, but he basically just kind of shoved what I said back to him to the side, saying that I thought we both want the same thing, a safe community for our kids to grow in. And he basically was saying that his kids are doing just fine. And then he started criticizing our podcast as a Christian nationalist podcast and you as a Putin lover, which we weren't even
Yeah.
talking about Putin. I didn't even bring up the podcast. So it's nice to know they have seen it. That's kind of nice, I guess. But
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point of trying to criticize something way off in left field when I was specifically talking about something that he had talked about the community
Right.
being safe? It's just that the confirmation bias, like you were just talking about, the division that we talked about last week, or with
Right.
John, like it's very toxic. It's very toxic, and it's sad to see a guy who used to be anti-war is now
Right.
marching to the tune of, till every last Ukrainian dies, Russia can't win, whatever that means.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I think the reason he called me that, right. I mean, and it's not the first time I've been called that. That seems to be the argument from the other side. Like, well, you're just a Putin lover if you want the war to end. Like it's so primitive and juvenile. Like, and if you wanted to talk to me about it and have a healthy debate, that's fine. But like, yeah, he also put a laugh emoji when I had that Facebook post I shared last time where I tagged all the awesome anti-war people I've been following over the last 20 years. And he just put a laugh emoji. I guess they're all Putin lovers. Like, okay, just the irony. Like, it's so binary, and that's why I had to write this 8-minute speech. Like, it just makes me think of like philosophical things and like those experiments about how flawed we are as human beings. Like that this is where it can lead us. It's and and I admit it. I have my own confirmation biases. I'm not above it, but I mean, but shoot, I'm not that binary. That's the idea of calling
Mhm.
somebody, yeah, a lover of a dictator just because you don't want to see us going to war with that dictator. Like, it's just so primitive and juvenile and stupid. I'm sorry. Like, yeah, I don't want to even. I mean, I try to stay off social media for those reasons, or social media uh, arguments because they tend to devolve into that level of primitiveness. Like you can't really. Whereas if he sat down and talked to us, he probably wouldn't say anything like that. So that's why the podcast is
Maybe
the
not.
superior.
Maybe he would though. Maybe he
Well,
would though, because right now specifically, the people who are openly Democrats and are involved in politics, they are like militantly aggressive about Russia. I mean,
yeah, we
it's
are.
very odd. It's almost like the Red Scare, during the
Right.
Cold War. It's just
Yeah.
very odd. Hippies are communists. Hippies would want you to take away all
Yep.
your rights and like live like the Soviets do. Like it's very like binary, like you were saying. Russia bad,
Right.
Zelensky good, and it's just not that simple. No war is that simple.
Exactly.
I think when we were talking with John, we were talking about the Civil War and how, in many regards, Robert E. Lee was a great man, but
Mhm.
he felt loyal to his state, not necessarily to like continuing slavery, but his state was attacked. You know, a lot of people. I mean, Ulysses S. Grant said himself that he had tremendous respect for Robert E. Lee. It's not that simple. And this Russia and Ukraine war is not that simple either.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I would like to, if there's anyone out there listening, you're welcome to come onto the show and explain to me like, how is our show Christian nationalist? If you think that,
I'd
or
love to know that.
I would love to too. I'm actually really fascinated and interested. And B, like, why does opposing endless funding of the war make one a Putin lover? I mean, it doesn't. It's just an argumentative tactic, just to show that his side is right, I guess.
Mhm.
But
Well, and
I'd be
also,
happy to have a debate about it.
well, yeah, and
What's
you
that?
may not be an open nationalist, but I am. Like, I'm an open nationalist. Like, I'm just like, yo, America before anyone else. I'm a nationalist. I'm not a globalist, and I'm a
Sure.
Christian but I'm a follower of Christ before anything else. So, I
Right.
mean, but in what way is that a bad thing? I
Right.
don't. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in freedom of religion. I believe, that everyone has human rights and everyone should be able to do what they want to do without hurting someone else. Like, that does not constitute as, like, uh, dare I say it, that does not constitute like the Lancaster Patriot newspaper with Chris Hume, and Joel Saint and those kind of guys who I don't even know if they're Christian nationalists either, but they certainly have been accused of it.
Right.
We're not
Right.
even close to them.
Right. Well, that reminds me, we did get mentioned in the LNP last week, thanks to Jackson Wait. Yeah, I appreciate it. And you know Jackson better than I do. He's a good guy.
Very
Um,
good guy.
but yeah, so right, this was from last Wednesday. It was about Josh Parsons and the PA Senate race, and so we were mentioned down here as having him on our podcast a little further down. Yeah, I would like to be able to make Pennsylvania more like Lancaster County, Parsons told hosts Joshua Gerber and Daniel Martin. And yeah, on a
By the
podcast
way,
hosted
he
by.
should have said you first. You're the host. I'm the
Oh, I
guy
don't
that just
care. He
talks
should
a
have said
lot.
the name of the
That's
podcast. That would have
ridiculous.
helped. Yeah, I guess there's a link here. I haven't even clicked on this. Maybe there's a virus, like those various
No,
airplane
no, no,
crashes.
no, no. It's
I'm
real.
just
It's
kidding.
real. I clicked it.
Oh,
What's
did you? Okay.
frustrating? What's frustrating though is that it said on a podcast. I'm like, come on, you couldn't give us the name.
Right.
Like,
That would have
we
been
say
nice.
LNP. We say LNP. Like, whatever.
Exactly.
It's fine.
Here's the other thing I wanted to bring up from this article, and I asked Jackson about this, and he hasn't responded. Parsons, 49, comfortably won the nomination over State Rep Brett Miller in January, a victory built on a strong showing from GOP committee members who are affiliated with far-right groups like Free
What does
PA
that mean?
and Moms for Liberty. I don't know. I was totally perplexed about, and I actually really wanted to know, like, who did you talk to that fits that bill? And or did you just make that up? Because first of all, like Free PA hasn't even met in person in Lancaster for at least a year. It's pretty much defunct.
Mhm.
And second of all, like I thought we cleared up about the Moms for Liberty being, but whatever. What does far right even mean? Like we've had Rachel on the show, and I thought
Well,
she did a good job of clarifying her views. But
yeah,
yeah,
and far right. I mean, American far right is associated with like neo-Nazism, not like more libertarian-minded thinking. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah,
Free PA is like medical freedom and school choice and limited government. Like, that's more libertarian than far right.
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't even make sense. Like,
It doesn't
everyone
make
knows
sense.
that like American far right is Nazi. I don't know a single neo-Nazi
Right.
in the
Yeah.
committee.
This isn't
I don't know
Ukraine.
a single one.
Sorry, that was a cheap shot. And that's
Uh,
actually that's an argumentative tactic I don't like to make when I'm discussing the Ukraine war with people. Like I could say, "Well, you're a neo-Nazi if you support them," but I don't do that. It was a joke just now. But of course, the other side is fine with calling me a Putin lover. But whatever. Yeah,
yeah, it's very weird. I don't. I thought everyone knew by this point that like far right is like is the neo Nazis, the white Aryan race, and I mean
yeah,
Kanye. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah. Cotton.
So yeah, I don't know what Jackson was referring to. It'd be nice for him to like answer that.
Yeah,
But
come on,
but
Jackson, you can do better. Yeah.
well, also though, we should give him credit where credit is due. Them mentioning
Mhm.
the podcast
Yeah.
confirms that
Thank you.
we're making an impact.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Jackson. Thank you. So yeah, so we mentioned Josh Parsons. Did we want to talk a little bit about what was going on tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me share this. There is a candidate forum tonight, and it is so the Democratic candidate is debating with the Libertarian candidate, and I guess Parsons declined.
Hmm.
So you had some thoughts about that. This is with a League of Women Voters in Lancaster County, who you've been to their public forum back when you were a candidate, and you debated.
Yeah.
Oh, that individual we were just talking about.
Those Mark Timmons. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Back when he was running.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Back in 2020, was it 2022? Yeah, 2022.
yeah.
When I was running against Mark and Tom, uh, I really tried to get Tom to come. I just really thought it was important, and I really thought, if you're gonna be getting paid a salary full time to represent people in a district, you should be more
Mhm.
than willing to come to a forum, whether it's a right-leaning forum, a left-leaning forum, an independent forum, no matter what it is. You should be more than willing to come and talk. First, like, give them an hour or two. You know,
Mhm.
that's just my own uh, prerogative and opinion. Um, I told Tom that back then. I was like, you should have came. I mean, that's the least you can do for people who are
Mhm.
gonna go out and vote for you, the people who are gonna pay your salary, the people who are gonna give you a legacy. Whether people want to admit it or not, when you're an elected official, it's a legacy. You have a legacy. Um,
Mhm.
and I would say the same thing to Josh. Josh is a phenomenal man, good father, good politician, good lawyer, smart guy. Um, maybe he didn't feel like it was needed. Maybe he didn't feel like it was necessary. Maybe feel like, hey, I could say something that would damage me. But he's a fighter. The reason why I voted for him in the nomination process was because he was a fighter. And he wouldn't back down to anyone. Well, if he's a fighter, I feel like he should be there fighting. Sure, it's not the greatest moderator. The League of Women Voters is obviously left leaning.
Mhm.
But hey, you're going to be fighting for the rest of your political career. Like, this is your job. And it gives credit to the Democrats, to the Democrat candidate. It gives credit to the Libertarian candidate, Zach. It gives credit to them because they're like, hey, we're open to talk. Why aren't you? It's
Well,
just
I
a
mean, yeah.
losing strategy. It's not a losing strategy because I don't think he's going to lose. But you're not doing yourself any favors to the people who you're trying to, like, at least appear moderate to if you won't even come to a forum.
So just you mentioned Tom Jones, like right. I remember he skipped that forum too, but then he did a debate with when it was all three of you for that radio station that I watched which was
Right.
excellent.
That was
And it seems
after
like
I had talked to him.
right, but that was like more of a neutral ground too. It was a much better format than I mean, I don't know, would you I don't want to say hostile, but League of Women Voters is a little biased.
It's
So
biased, but it was fun. But it was also fun. Like,
sure, sure.
I was going in there knowing that, like, the room isn't going to be on my side, and I went in there
Mhm.
knowing that Timmons is going to have his people there, and the moderator is going
Yeah,
to be on his side, and I knew that going into it. So I'm like, hey, I can say whatever I want to, and hey, maybe I'll
right.
change one person's mind in that room. you know, and it was
Yeah.
fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Um,
Good listening to
I,
you.
I
Yeah.
don't. I don't think. Okay, so all right. Let's go federally. Here's a great example. Trump's debates, both of them, were kind of like in hostile territory. Sure, he had a Fox News debate with what's his name? Who was the guy? Bear. He
I
was
don't
a
remember.
moderator. Bear from Fox News. Like, he doesn't like Trump
Mhm.
at all. And
Yeah,
then the other one he did that was CNN, if I remember right.
yeah.
Hostile, hostile, and he got credit for going in there and doing it. You know, because he's like, hey, I'm willing to talk to anyone, and I feel like that is something that's like you were talking earlier about, bridging the gap and
Right.
being open to conversations. You have to be open to conversations. If we want our nation to heal, you have
Mm-hmm.
to be open for conversation. So I would have preferred Parsons to go and
Mm-hmm.
have an open conversation, whether it was on friendly territory or not.
Right. No, I'm sure he had a good reason. I mean, I don't know what the reason was, but I'm sure the paper will
Hey,
have
I
a
still
field day
like
with.
the guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he's a great dude. He's going to do a great job as a state senator. You
Right.
know, that's just my own personal opinion.
Sure.
Being being the libertarian candidate and going to a debate, knowing that neither side likes me. If I can do it, why can't anyone else can do it?
Yeah. Yep. That's fair. Do Are we ready to move on? You mentioned Trump. I know you had a lot to say about him, but did we have any
Uh,
other local issues we wanted to cover first?
uh,
That was.
well, we could. I mean, we can come back to Trump later if you want to talk. I mean, do you know anything else about the airplane crash?
I do know. I think there's a father and son who are in critical condition. I think. But,
Yeah,
n-
yeah, but
yeah,
that's
never
it.
fully
That's
released.
all we
Yeah.
really know.
Yeah.
They don't know why it wrecked, how it wrecked. Like,
Well, there's
I didn't
something about a
really.
door being open. That's all I know. They turned around to go back because of a door being open. Is all I read, and
Oh, is that
then
confirmed?
I mean, I've read that a couple times in L&P, but
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I was actually looking to see what news I could find out about that. I didn't see that. Okay,
Yeah,
so there's they couldn't get a door to shut, so they turned around to fix that, and something went wrong.
that's
Wow.
everything I've
Okay.
ascertained. Right,
Too
and
many too many airplane crashes are happening.
yeah, it's
Oh
crazy.
yeah, 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 yeah. And talk about confirmation bias. Um, Everyone's just like, it's so weird. Trump talks about like DEI and like TSA, right? And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden there's planes falling out of the sky like every week, and then so like now everyone's just like DEI, DEI. That's why all these planes are coming down. I'm like, is
Yeah,
it? I mean, I don't know if it really is. I mean,
right.
like, I don't know if there's a paraplegic, you know, in charge of traffic control, and that's why planes are falling out of the sky. I just think it's kind of
Yeah,
like what you're
we have no
saying.
way of knowing, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
No,
know. I just thought
sure.
that was funny.
Yeah, it's a good point. Um, so what else you got about Trump? Yeah, I don't have anything else for the local stuff. I mean,
Okay, all right.
there was some.
So
Yeah,
hang in here with me, people.
sure.
Um, the budget that was passed last week, and Thomas Massie was the only Republican against it. Um, that a lot of local people I know were calling Thomas Massie a rhino, which, if you don't know, Thomas Massie is the most constitutional, liberty loving representative this country has. He's the only one who stood up to the $6.5 trillion spending during COVID. He's the only one that voted against that. Um, he's the only one that consistently votes against CRs. And by the way, Trump, fact checking Trump right here, the only CR that Trump said that Massie has voted yes for CRs before. That is kind of incorrect. He voted yes one time, and that was because he got into the CR that 8% of discretionary spending would be cut in the next year's CR. So he voted yes for that. That CR never actually passed into law, so therefore it never really happened. That's the only time Massey's ever voted yes for a continuing resolution. And for those of you who don't know, a continuing resolution is rubber stamp bill, rubber stamping the same spending that they did the year before. So Trump has posted on True Social, and everyone else shares it, that he is going to do his best to primary Thomas Massie of Kentucky.
It's pretty petty.
The idea that he would say that just kind of proves to me that he still has far more to learn, far more to learn about our Constitution, about liberty, about politics. I mean, right now it looks like Trump has picked a side, and the side he's picked is the establishment. Because I mean, there's no other way for him to say we're going to primary Thomas Massie. Who are you going to primary Thomas Massie for? Like what? You're going to primary him with an empty suit that's just going to vote with the Republicans whenever the Republicans want to pass something? How is that any better? How is that MAGA?
So yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but just to remind you, I mean, this is Trump we're talking about. Doesn't he like he says a lot of stuff, and then didn't he say that the first time, like during the COVID thing, like I'm going to primary you, and then he's back to supporting him during the election in 2024.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think it's just a threat, but he's going to forget about it.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I don't know, but shouldn't Trump realize that if say the continuing resolution goes to his desk and he signs it to avoid a government shutdown, which is so scary, even though it's really not scary at all. Like if he signs that, he's signing the rubber stamping of all those checks that Elon found from the year prior. So all the waste, all the fraud, all the abuse that Elon and his team has found in Doge from last year or even before that, all those expenditures were passed through Congress by a continuing resolution. That's how our government works. We take last year's budget, we see if we need to add anything, they add some things, and then they pass, and then they put it in with the continuing resolution, and they typically call it an omnibus. Okay. And then it's just a rubber stamp, boom, same spending as last year, plus this, and this. Okay. Right. If that goes through the House, goes through the Senate, and Trump signs that, he's just signing the same baloney, the same bullcrap that Elon just found. Like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth, and he's targeting Massie for shining a light on it. It just feels like he hasn't learned.
It's certainly confusing, right? You'd think he'd be on Massie's side, right?
Well, he should be on Massie's side. And here's the thing. He has all the leverage in the world. He just won a massive victory. He won every swing state. Right. It'd be so easy for Trump to say, hey, I'm not signing a bill unless you get rid of everything Elon found. And I want I don't want a continuing resolution. I want a fresh budget. He has all the leverage in the world. He just won a huge election, maybe the biggest election in our lives. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
he won the freaking popular vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has a mandate.
He has all this leverage, and he's just like, yeah, let's just sign the continuing resolution. Come on, Massie, stop, Massie. I'm going to primary you if you don't stop this. Like, he has all the leverage, and he's just punting. He's punting on it. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. It's
maybe he doesn't understand it either. Yeah,
he should understand it. He should easily understand it. The dude took a bullet. The dude was trying to go golfing, and he almost got assassinated again. Like, these people are coming after him. He knows the game. He's been president before, and he's just like, yeah, all you uniparty Republicans, yeah, give me the continuing resolution you signed under Obama, and I'll just sign it. And Thomas Massie, you better get out of my way. It doesn't make any sense. And I understand that the CR is going to have, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. Sure, that's great. Okay. But it means nothing if what Doge has found just is going to be refunded this year. It's just, it's just so dumb.
So does that mean a lot of those people are going to keep their jobs who are getting
Yes.
cut? So maybe that's a good thing then, right?
No.
Well, because some of them don't deserve to have their jobs cut,
All of them
right?
do.
Yeah, okay.
What are you talking about? All of them do. It's not. It's not what. Well, you know how I am. Okay, all of these agencies, all of these government departments, none of them
Right.
are to be there in the first place because that isn't the role that our Constitution says our government's supposed to do.
Mhm.
I mean, there really should be no bureaucracy because there's no reason for one because that's not the government's job.
Right. Yeah.
Government's job
No,
is to defend our rights, protect our borders, take care of commerce, and that's it.
yeah, no, I understand the ideal you're working
It's not
towards.
an ideal. It's in a piece of paper.
Right. I think the
That
problem a lot of people have was is it too much too soon, you know? Is there a more, I don't know, less, less aggressive way of getting there? That
well,
that might
well,
I
we
mean, I'm not saying it's the wrong or right way, like, philosophically, but that might make people's lives easier if it's done a little less, I don't know, aggressively. But
well,
I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on it.
I get what you're saying, and sure, like there's going to be pain, but there's going to be a heck of a lot more pain if we become default on our debt.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
going to feel a whole lot more pain if the BRICS nations overtake the EU
mhm,
and America. We're going to have a whole lot more pain if the dollar collapses.
yeah. I think most people probably just don't understand that, and that's why there's a lot of criticism right now of all the federal cuts and right, all the downsizing of government because you can't see the tangible dangers of not doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, some people are hating on the tariffs.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. That's
And everyone's talking about the stock market and like how horrible the stock market is. I'm like, I'm sorry, but like I have an IRA, but I mean, the stock market's kind of a disease on capitalism. It makes you think that you are investing in something that is actually tangible
Mhm.
and real when it's
Right.
really not tangible or real. It's like gambling on a
Mhm.
high stakes, poker
Yeah.
table, like and then the government has the ability to manipulate the stock market so that they can say, hey, our jobs report's higher, hey, our interest rates are lower. Like
Right.
the stock market is more of a tool for government manipulation than it is, say, a good thing for capitalism. It's just
Right.
kind of a disease. It puts profits, and that's the other thing with DEI and ESG. If you remember the ESG
Oh,
scare,
yeah.
you know,
Environmental,
um,
social,
that
yeah.
yeah, ESG and DEI would never have happened if the stock market didn't exist.
I see
If
what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, if BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard wasn't able to buy majorities of all these companies and then have seats on their boards, because you have to have a board if you're a publicly traded company,
Right.
there wouldn't be basically fascism inside of a capitalist country.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I was talking to one of my friends from high school about it, and they thought stock market crashing is just so terrible. And I'm just like, well, that's what's going to happen when you actually think it's like real capitalism and a real free market. It's not. The government interferes with the stock market daily. There's a reason why Trump was touting how great the stock market is. It's because he can manipulate it. Like
Right.
when he was president the first time, he's like, the stock market, the stock market, the stock market. Working class people don't care about the stock market.
Exactly.
Working class people care about, the price of eggs.
Right.
You know, they care about the interest rate on a car, the interest rate on a home, the interest rate on a personal loan. Like people, they care about how much groceries are, how much gas is, that stuff.
Yep.
Anyways, I didn't mean to go on that tangent about the stock market. I
No,
apologize.
no, it's good stuff. we we should have a philosophical discussion about that sometime, maybe with some more expertise. Yeah, I don't have that much expertise in the stock market. So
I don't either. All I know is that when the government is able to pump up the stock market, and then there's a crash, it's usually really harmful for the American people.
Yeah.
Every stock market crash has been harmful to the American people, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, put your money in the stock market; it'll always make you money," until it doesn't. I mean, there's millions of people who were ready to retire in 2008, and they lost a huge chunk of their retirement. There were people in 1929 who blew their brains out. There were millionaires who committed suicide.
Right.
Because of the crash and the Great Depression. In the 1970s, it was bad as well. People lost everything in that crash, and in the .com crash in 1999 to 2000, 2000. Like that's why I said it was a disease. So sorry.
Yeah. No, it seems like there's always a crash inevitable, and
Well, there's always a boom and then a bust.
exactly.
And that is because the government can manipulate the policies and can manipulate the Fed
Right.
to make the illusion of the stock market being great or not great. And then just the fact that the president appoints the chair of the Federal Reserve, it just kind of shows you that, like, okay, if you put in a certain guy that runs the Fed the way you want it to run, that guy is going to manipulate the interest rates to then change the inflation.
Right.
The inflation's going so high. Okay, we'll just increase the interest rate. Well, that's going to hurt a lot of people. That's going to hurt, a lot of people that want to start a business, buy a house, buy a car. And it's just a realm that the government was never supposed to be in.
Yeah. Okay. So we got off on this tangent because no, that's okay. No, I want to circle back because we were talking about working towards the ideal of having less government and how that'll be better with a more robust free market. Less government positions, and I agree with that philosophy in theory. But here's the thing: I mean, if I had a federal government job, I would, and I really, it was a really comfortable job. It helped me put food on the table. I wouldn't philosophically be in favor of getting rid of my own job. I would do everything I could to hold on to it. So just to be fair, I mean, maybe that makes me a hypocrite, but I don't expect anyone else to think differently either who is working in the federal government. So, we're kind of stuck then. What do you do? How do you work towards that without hurting a lot of people,
Well, again, like I said, the collapse of the dollar is going to hurt way more people than the 12 million people who work for the federal government now.
Right.
It's going to hurt the entire nation, all 337 million of us, if the dollar collapses. We think we have it bad now. I mean, Germany during the Great Depression, dude, they were using wheelbarrows to go grocery shopping, wheelbarrows of cash to go grocery shopping. There are people who are throwing their paper money away because it was worth the value of a basket. There are stories of that happening in Germany, which came to rise, Hitler.
Yep.
If the dollar would collapse, if we just keep doing this and be like, oh, think of the 12 million people who are going to lose their job. And I'm like, they're all really smart people. They obviously know how to work a computer because they all Zoom to work now. They can find honest work somewhere else. They can find honest jobs somewhere else. The whole country will collapse if the dollar collapses.
No, that's a good point. It's
well, also like the BRICS nations. Who's in the BRICS? You got Brazil, Russia, Iran, and China. Okay, China also subsequently kind of rules the Middle East right now, kind of, because we left. It was kind of a vacuum. They have they have Bagram Air Force Base now. They have more oil reserves now than we do, and Saudi Arabia is not linked to us completely. All it takes is one bad conversation between Trump and the Crown Prince, and Saudi Arabia is like, peace out. I'm joining the Brent, and then there goes down the petrodollar.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like the petrodollar is what's keeping America's currency solvent right now. So if all it takes is Saudi Arabia to stop, and our dollar is worth nothing. No one needs our dollar. No, we don't need to print money to send it over to India, so India can buy oil, because only about 20% of oil is bought outside of the dollar. All of it is basically bought by the U.S. dollars, and that's why other countries need our currency. They buy our currency, our inflation, to then buy oil around the world. So we are currently on a house of cards. So Doge isn't doing nearly enough to me.
Yeah, and it's the problem with the system is like we're perpetually punting down the problem down the road and not dealing with it now, hoping that the collapse just happens way further down. I guess we're trading comfort, I guess, for freedom, or whatever the old adage is. It's
we're giving up. We're receiving safety by giving up our freedom.
Yeah, something like that.
or no, yeah. I just said on the podcast a few episodes ago, but yeah, I don't need to talk anymore about it. It's just I wish Trump would wise up about the establishment Republicans. I wish he'd wise up about, I wish he'd clear up his messaging in general. Just like, are you going to sign the continuing resolution and continue and raise the debt ceiling to $40 trillion and just completely just talk out of both ends of your mouth?
Right.
Or are you going to get serious about cutting spending, cutting the size of government, balancing the budget, which is what he wants to do?
Yeah.
And the other thing, he wants to sell these gold card immigration thing. He said I think he said 1 million people. If 1 million people buy that for $5 million a pop, it would be equal 50 trillion, and it'd pay the debt off and all that. I really hope he's not banking on that.
Yeah. Well, it's refreshing to hear actual legitimate criticism of the president that's warranted, and not the kind of boy who cried wolf stuff from the other side. Which,
thank you. And I voted for him, and I would vote for him tomorrow. I'd vote for him tomorrow.
Yeah,
he's clearly the better choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know anyone who's regretted their vote for Trump. But plenty of us have criticisms. And we should have criticisms of our president, especially if we voted for them. It's just a shame that there has to be a lot of noise from the other side, and which kind of why I start off my monologue and addressed our buddy Mark there. Please don't be so shallow. Let's have a real conversation.
Hey, and there's a possibility that even if Thomas Massie got primaried, which, I mean, if he does, I might regret my vote if Thomas Massie gets primaried. If Thomas Massie gets we already lost Matt Gaetz, because of Trump. I'm still not fully recovered from us losing Matt Gaetz. But if he does get primaried, there is a chance you're going to end up in a couple of years having Thomas Massie as a senator for Kentucky and Rand Paul as a senator for Kentucky, because this is Mitch McConnell's last term. He said he's done after this.
That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome.
So it could be a blessing in disguise if he loses his Congress seat. He comes back stronger.
well, I don't know. All money related bills start in the House, and he's the guy when it comes to the debt ceiling and the debt calculator he wears on his shirt all the time that has like the counting numbers, how much debt America has accrued.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's kind of built to be in the House because that's where all spending starts.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to lose. I mean,
hey,
I don't know.
he can beat OPEC.
Yeah, exactly. APEC. Yeah.
APEC, not OPEC. Sorry, that's oil. OPEC
Right,
is
right.
oil. Sorry.
Yeah,
APEC.
he took on APEC. Right.
Yeah, multiple times.
Yeah, that's a whole can of worms. But I don't know. Do you want to wrap up anything else? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah. Let's wrap up. Shout out our Facebook page. You know where they can find us.
We have a Facebook page now called Lancast. It's small but growing. We're trying to get it out there. We have a link to the Josh Parsons episode there. Hopefully, it'll be circling around somewhere in your Facebook vicinity. So give us a like if you see it in your feed. And
and thank you everyone for listening. And we appreciate it. We appreciate comments. We appreciate emails, episode ideas, and anyone who would like to criticize us, please come on. I mean, I like talking.
If you think I'm a Putin lover, please come talk to me and explain your rationale. I won't be mad. I'm sorry if I got a little upset, Mark. I had just read your comment just before the episode, and it got me a little fired up. But let's have a civil conversation, right? That's what it's about. All right. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Adios.
If you would like to be a guest on Lancast or contact us for any reason, send an email to lancastAmericaFirst@gmail.com. That's Lancast with 2 C's, AmericaFirst@gmail.com. Thank you.